In the world of politics, there is nothing to compare with the Olympic Games. What on the surface is all allegedly about the athletes and what wide world of sports used to call the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. It is more about the human drama of under-the-table competition and how much filthy lucre can be stashed away in the pockets of those who see the competition as little more than the starting point for the construction of their new villa in Switzerland. So far, we have been lucky to not have a lot of political puckery dance before us in Rio, but we are viewing straight up the expected and well-discussed effects of chicanery that brought us to Brazil in the first place. Green water, green hair. What happens to those unfortunate enough to compete in water and accidentally swallow some of same? And ratings that prove people are either tired of the nonsense that produces the games or maybe even the games themselves. For this and more, we take the plunge into those dangerous waters where sports and business often mix like H2O and oil. The first person to undertake the need to dig deep into that sometimes hazardous concoction, the sports professor from Lambeau Field in Green Bay, Wisconsin, Rick Horrow. By the way, have you been to the Packer Hall of Fame yet?
Yeah, well, you know, they're still talking about the Packer Hall of Fame game last week that was postponed.
Oh,
I'm going right after I finish listening to your nonsense to the Packers Hall of Fame and get some real history.
Don't forget, young man, most of the time it is your nonsense because I ask the questions. You give us the nonsense coming back. I want that on the record right now. And I know that you had something to do with that field. You had something to do with that field because you just wanted to write it down in your sports business column and say, here's what happens when you don't take care of the field the summer before. So don't get
well, you know what? All it is paint. And frankly, it's interesting. Dave Baker, who's a friend, he was the commissioner of arena football, and now he's the head of the Hall of Fame. I know he didn't bargain for this. He got up and told the fans, if it was my kid, and his kid was an NFL player, I wouldn't allow him to play here either. And he get a refund. The Ohioans appreciated the first part. Second part, the people who came from like all over the world don't care about the $30 refund.
No, yeah, the hotel, the travel, everything else. Now that's okay. All right, let's talk about hotels, travel, and a bunch of other things. Those people who went to Rio to see the Olympics. We have a diving pool, not one, but two, turning lime green jello. I mean, it looks just like it in the picture here. And the folks there say, well, wait a minute, the water tanks ran out of some of the chemicals used in the water treatment process. Rick, meantime, we have water turning green in the pools. We have at least one competitor that's been sick after ingesting the water out in Rio Bay. We have hair turning green of some of the athletes right here. Come on, doesn't this just prove what we've been saying for a while? These games are an absolute mess from the ground level up.
Well, you know, I'm not prepared to write off the games on the basis of 3 localized green incidents. And I'm really not even trying to be cynical about it. And we talked about the ratings. You know, the bottom line is the stories are pretty compelling, and I find the Olympics fairly fun to watch. It is the first games that I've not gone to in a long time, including Sochi. I broke my streak here, and a lot of it was frankly a little worried about conditions. We haven't seen any large-scale issues. I don't want to minimize the color of the water. When you think about what could have happened,
but you were worried. You were worried.
Well, let's just cross our fingers and hope that we're 40% through, and the next 60%. The worst we talk about is green water.
I'm going to be with you as far as the stories are compelling, because even though I swore I wouldn't watch the Olympics, I'm having to catch the highlights and I'm watching them because what's going on there is still something you cannot miss. But is it not fair to say that what's happened to get here to Rio has got to be changed for future Olympics, or otherwise we're going to be looking at an effort that sooner or later will have to die under its own crushing weight?
Well, the crushing weight has to be defined in certain ways. Thomas Bach, the IOC president, an academic, a German former Olympian. If you remember, I spent about an hour with him with lunch and an interview last May and June in Toronto. I found him very compelling, very transparent. And one of the things that he is faced with is the dilemma of trying to bring Olympic-style infrastructure events to countries that are not third world but are emerging. Brazil, when it was selected 8 years ago, economy was great, politics were better. I know there were a lot of promises weren't made, but the circumstances of the economy changed. And the issue is, do you go to India? Do you go to Pakistan? Do you go to Southeast Asia? Do you go to Africa? Well, if you do, you face some of these infrastructure decisions. Or do you go to Los Angeles and have a sure bet because been there, done that? By the way, that's what the LA 2024 people hope happens.
What you do is you create a rotation. We've mentioned this before, but aren't we getting to that point? Maybe not one city, but maybe 3 cities where 3 cities, each the summer and the winter games, and they will continue just to go in rotation because it's set. The economics are there. The people are not injured. The taxes don't crush people. And you don't have to worry about the facilities basically turning into mausoleums.
Well, that makes sense. But, you know, we started a rotation with the Olympics of Beijing hosting winter 2 times from now, after summer 2 times ago, with the Bird's Nest and those other famous facilities turning into, as you would call them, mausoleums. So if you're going to opt for a rotation, you better be careful about what you rotate.
All right, let's talk about a couple of things very quickly here. Lily King and the finger-wagging, shaming that she gave Yuliya Efimova after winning the 100-meter breaststroke. Personally, I stood up and applauded. And I think she has a real good point to do this because Efimova had already had a couple of instances in her past regarding doping. And they're all talking about in the Russian press about how terrible it is how they treated her. Don't they need to be treated sometimes? Personally, I think they need to be treated this way because isn't doping, in many ways, the single biggest issue that we have going on in the Olympic Games right now, the cheats?
It is. Now, as a lawyer, here's what I would say about that. And the IOC admits that if they went to the court in The Hague, the sports court, for the ultimate resolution of this, you can't keep someone out just because they had a prior offense and paid their penalty. It's the American justice system as well. Just because you're charged and you've been found guilty of something else, you got to prove that current case. But that doesn't mean there isn't suspicion, and that doesn't mean that she couldn't be tarred in the court of public opinion, which, of course, exactly is what happened.
Not only that, but she had to basically have an appeal to get back in again. So this is caught once and then an appeal to get back in. And I think that is what really bothers a lot of the athletes as you're getting in at the last minute. Real quick, the IOC has approved 5 new sports for the Olympic Games, Tokyo 2020, baseball, softball, karate, skateboard, sports climbing, and surfing. Rick, again, aren't we getting to the point where it's getting a little ridiculous? I know what they're trying to do is youthen up the games and they want to speak to a new generation. But are some of these sports really Olympic sports?
Well, I think so. And, you know, go to a skateboard park and see if these people who play that sport from day one are not world-class athletes just because they happen to be on a skateboard. And if the definition is something you or I can't do, you know I have trouble on a skateboard, and I'd love to see you on one, by the way.
I can hit a baseball. I can hit a softball. I've taken karate. I can skateboard. I have climbed rocks. And, oh, yeah, by the way, I've surfed as well. Go ahead. Give me which ones you've done, Horrow. Give me which ones. Come on.
All of them, twice.
Yeah, all of them twice. Real quick, Michael, yeah, I'd like to see that. Real quick, Michael Phelps, Ryan Lochte says no doubt he will compete in the 2020 Tokyo Olympics. Do you think maybe, I mean, he's going to be 35 years old. I don't want to waste what he's done now. I don't want to look back and say he shouldn't have won another games.
Well, here, you know, Lochte can make his own decision because he hasn't gotten that gold yet. If that will not by itself draw Michael Phelps in for another 4 years. What an amazing way to go out if Michael Phelps goes out by winning number 23 tonight. Wow. It is almost unheard of. And by the way, his image, corporate America, Subway, otherwise, he and Simone Biles clearly are the 2 big winners of these games so far, and we're only 40% through.
Golden, and without a doubt, one of the single greatest athletes we have ever seen in our time. Rick, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show because absolutely out of all of our guests, there is no one who is so outstanding in their field like you are. Every single time.
Wow, I'm going to go get on my skateboard and practice my karate.
Yeah, I got to see that. Don't worry about it. I'll be at the ER to pick you up because I know that skateboard will last about 8 seconds. I've seen your balance work, my friend.
Wow.
Be good.
I'll see you next week.
Yes, you will. All right, take care, Rick. Seriously, the man is an athlete, useless. Rock on, true believers. Thanks for joining us. See you next week. Good night and good luck.